This is the second piece of Delage, Lahore, from the 4 Indian poems. In the second piece, there is one very interesting section which is vocalized only. I know that Delage went to India and then he went there and met a singer in a temple. And so when I look at this music, right, at first I'm thinking, okay, how do I sing like the Indian music, right? Because this is not exactly like Indian music when you play very directly. So I went and searched a little bit about how I can sing like classical Indian singing. So I found a little bit about Carnatic singing, and I chose 3 ways of embellishment to sing this piece. So the first one is the shake, the oscillation. A little bit like a trill. And the second one is something called Jantas Swara. So if you see the 2 repeated notes, right? So you will do an accent. For example, so it's 2 F sharps, right? So the second F sharp we want to do a bounce. So yeah. So every time I see a repeated note, I will naturally know that is a Jantas Swara, because that is one of the theory in the Carnatic singing. So in the original music, right, Delage actually wrote some places with accents. I mean, a tenuto with a staccato. And yes, that is the second embellishment I added, the Jantas Swara. And the third one is the changing of pitch. So for example, here, so I don't remain at 1 note only. Perhaps we have one more technique that I borrowed, which is the sliding. You know, in the Indian violin, right, classical violin playing, they have the slide up and slide down. So initially, before I look at the Carnatic singing, I sing the whole thing with portamento. That does not make sense. So now to go a little bit into how the philosophy, I don't know if philosophy is the right word to say, right? But how the Carnatic singer look at music is actually, when you look at that note, the individual note, we want to naturally improvise a little bit. If you're going to use the Western, understanding, that is because that is my background. In Western classical singing, when we look at one note, we want to sing that note itself. Sorry. This is very original singing already. I sing as it's written. So, and another problem is if we sing as written, if I use Panovka way of singing, I mean a Western classical way of singing, right? If you look at the embellishment, I will sing like this. For example, the grace note. There's 2 problems if we sing like this, if we sing as written. First of all, I also go and check how do we play with the timing, because I know in Indian music there is their own timing, And if you look at the music itself, right, it wrote there, in a time signature very flexible, d'une mesure très souple. I think so. Souple, souple. Okay, here. It's very flexible. And we don't have anything underneath, right? It's just a long note holding. It's just like a sitar. And then we don't have anything here. So that means it's up to you how you want to play with the time. So how do I play with the time? I have so much freedom. Then I found one of the technique is like you want to repeat the note, right? I think I should add the fifth technique just now, but never mind. Let me just add it here. It should be something like that. Let's see if I'm going to sing this one. So me, so me. I would say a dotted rhythm. We can add this into our grace note there. If we sing, it has more nuances there. This is very classical. I mean, very Western classical. And Indian classical. I'm adding a lot of things there. So, the timing, dotted rhythm, and then we want to make a trio there. So, la, so, la, so, la, so. And then, so from the so to mi, I added a down tempo, a down slide. Oh, so mi, oh. And this type of slide is forbidden in Western classical training. And so when I started to explore, right, the first thing is I just need to let go of what was forbidden in my background and start to slide wherever I would like to slide. Okay, so two things that I want to mention about how to make that Indian classical mindset work in a Western classical trained singer is two things. One is we have to actually, you know, when we are sliding, we need to know what is the inner note. You know, at the very beginning, I'm just trying to oscillate whatever I can oscillate. I just try to imitate without really knowing what is that. Just whatever oscillates and whatever come out from my mouth, I will just use that. Like this one. You will need to know what is the in-between note. So the philosophy is we don't want that note itself only, because you know, in Chinese 我们不要把那个字那个 note 唱死，我们要让那个音是活的。所以什么是音是活的？就是它里面它有其他的东西在动。There is other things happening in that note itself. So recently I saw a video, right? It's about Arabic singing. So that girl was singing the solfege, right? So in the comment, people are arguing. They were arguing about this is a wrong way of singing solfege because each note have to give it a name. But that is a different practice. That is our, you know, Western classical trained practice. But in like Carnatic singing, the note is moving very fast, and if you want to dissect it, that's okay. Then we will be very clear with the notes that we are hearing. But if you're singing in the performance tempo, then maybe we can only sing one pitch name, which is a solfege, one solfege, but include the inner notes. Okay, so that is the very main difference. In Western classical singing, you see one note, you sing that note. But if you are singing in a Carnatic singing way, you need to put in the embellishment, and it's something that I find very interesting. Delage is Ravel's friend, and my understanding is that he's a very rich man and he can write whatever he likes. Doesn't really need to take care about his audience, whether they like it or not, because the music that he wrote is wrote for his friend. Just like this poem, he tribute to Ravel, tribute to, very interesting, this guy Stravinsky. So the music he wrote is wrote for his friend, wrote for people who can understand what he writes. It's not for the general public. I also think, this is just my my thoughts about his writing for this very section, is that he assumes singer will know this is an Indian music and you'll need to sing in an Indian way, in an Carnatic way. So with a little bit of understanding about Carnatic singing will help in singing what he write there. Like for example, the double notes and the long notes, you know, better rhythm or better choice of notes. I think this should not be written, sing as written. And we can actually listen to a lot of other references online where people just sing with lots of portamento, which I think is not enough. Because portamento is just two notes, but you need to add more embellishment to have more color in the melody. I also don't want to mislead that this is a Carnatic music. It's still a very Western classical piece. Because for example, this one is, I don't know if in Carnatic singing we go to that high, but this is probably a soprano range here. Yeah. And technique as well. It's a coloratura, I would say. You can see how advanced people are using the elements into their very own culture, the element of another culture into their very own culture. So when you listen to the music, right, you will know it's, oh, there's Indian element, but it sounds very Western. I hope you feel that it's very interesting as well.